work. And part of that is growing the things that we do both in the community that we are housed in Des Moines, as well as around the country. So thanks for giving us a chance, Mard, and I look forward to learning some things today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Excited to have a sponsor for this program. So before I turn it off to Julie, the vice chair of our committee and our panelists, I wanted to give some background on this program. And I know some of you on the call, this is like your third mentee you've had, or maybe it's your third mentor. So thrilled that you've come back, but I also know we have a lot of new pairs on the call as well. So wanted to give some history. So the one-to-one mentoring program, it was launched in 2017, about a year after EWL was formed. So in talking to our EWL members, we knew they wanted to be matched with Tempo members and have that one-to-one connection opportunity. So we launched our program in 2017 with 33 pairs. The following year, we added 36, the next 54, and you can just see how we've grown and grown. So now we make matches 2 times per year, whereas before we made them 1 time a year. So that's why that 100's a little skewed, but definitely there's so much interest in this program, and it really brings to life Tempo's focus on mentoring. Another key aspect of this program that we're really proud of is that 20 EWL members have now moved into Tempo. And generally, these women are nominated for Tempo by their mentor that they are matched with. And then these women are becoming mentors, so passing it forward. So we just love how this program is full circle, EWL mentees becoming mentors to then keep passing it on. And if you're a mentor on the call, that is a key role that you can play, is supporting your mentee if she desires to move into Tempo someday, if that's one of her goals. So I just wanted to share a quote, and I know Lisa registered, but I don't see her. But Anne and Lisa are a great example of this. So Anne and Lisa were actually matched the very first year of our program, one of those 33. And they have had such a strong relationship. I think they meet every week, have a phone call. And Lisa really supported Anne and encouraged her last year to move into Tempo. And that's what happened. And now Anne has taken on different leadership roles in Tempo. So just wanted to share that story as a highlight of the program. And now we're going to do a little icebreaker question, get to know who is on the call before we turn it over to our panel. So I think most events that you see me do, we use Mentee, so maybe it's not new to you, but we'll give you a minute to go to this website, mentee.com, and then type in the code 13330982. And you all are already doing it. Awesome. So we want to know who is on the call here. There's 38 of us so far, mostly EWL members. Or it's the EWL members who've used Mentee before and are doing it more quickly. So our next question, if you haven't already gone to it, is what do you hope to get out of this session? So you saw the agenda. There will be a panel of a pair that we've had in the past. We'll do a quick overview of our top tips, but let us know if there's anything specific or any questions that you have so we can make sure that we get to those.
Mara, can you say the website again, please?
Yep, it's mentee.com. And if one of my team members can put it in the chat, that would be awesome. It's also at the top of the screen.
Huh, okay. I might need to use a different browser. For some reason, it's being weird.
It is mentee.com, MENTI, and then you'll enter a code and it will take you to our set of questions. So what do you hope to get out of this session? Get to know your mentor, tips and best practices, fun outing ideas. Let's see if we can help with that. How to be a good mentee, how to support your mentees, learn from other pairs, tips and tricks, how to be the best mentor ever. I love that. All right. So we are taking note of these. Thank you. And then our next question is more about your individual pair. So what do you hope to get out of your one-to-one pair? Or in other words, why did you sign up for this program to be a mentee or a mentor? So a lot of relationship building, growth and support, two-way learning and growth, which is, I think, a key theme that you will hear throughout, is that even though we have the mentor and mentee titles, it can be reverse. Rewarding relationships, perspective, all awesome things. And final question is, do you have your next meeting on the calendar? This is good. 2/3 do. And I'm actually in the no category. I need to get my meeting with my mentor on the calendar.
Same here. Thought of it.
Yes. Way to admit where we're at, Julie. All right. So now to the fun part. I get to stop talking and we'll turn it over to Julie Garcia-Sotak, who is the vice chair of our one-to-one mentoring committee. She actually has participated in this event in the past as the mentee panelist spot. Now she is our moderator, and I will hand it over to her. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you. So our goal here is to get everybody, just like you put into the survey, it's tips and tricks and best practices and insights from mentees as well as mentors. And if you've never had a mentor before, I can tell you that I've always had a mentor in my life. To not have one was actually a little bit foreign to me when I first joined EWL. So I was actually very excited when we moved to setting those mentor-mentee relationships twice in a year. So today's special guests, we have Bridget as the mentee, and we have Molly as the mentor. And I'm gonna have them introduce themselves and tell us how long you've been with either Tempo or EWL, and what do you love most about mentoring or being a mentee?
Do you want me to start, Julie, or do you want Molly to start?
No, Bridget, you can start.
Okay, cool. So I'm Bridget Krause, and I've been part of Tempo, I think maybe a year and a half now, Tempo EWL. I joined the mentorship program because I always think it's like Julie, I had one good mentor throughout my career, but I think it's always great to have more than one mentor. And I was lucky enough to be matched with Molly, who I think is great. And as Julie gets into asking us more questions, I will tell you why that is. So what did I miss? Should I?
You're good.
Good. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Take it away, Molly.
Hi, I'm Molly Thiel, and I have been a part of Tempo for about a year and a half now, and been connected with Bridget for almost as long. I think not too long after I started Tempo, I signed up for the mentor-mentee program, and similar reasons, I think, as probably most of you on the phone, I have also utilized the incredible value of a mentor-mentee relationship myself since my early 20s, and have rarely been without one. And even if someone thinks they're not my mentor, I might call them that anyway. So I find a ton of value in that relationship. So that was, I wanted to keep that going, and give back a little bit in terms of some of the things I've received. But then I also know as a mentee that I've been able to also give to my mentors. And so I wanted the same the same kind of reciprocal relationship. So to me, it's just, you can always learn something from everyone. And I love those connections.
Excellent. Thank you. So this question is for Bridget. Tell me more about your meetings. How often do you connect? Who sets up the meetings? Is it formal or informal?
Sure thing. So like Molly said, we got paired up right around the time COVID started. So her and I have actually yet to meet in person. So I think I did the reaching out. I reached out to Molly. We set up monthly meetings. So we have them on the calendar. They just repeat. Usually they don't get rescheduled because we both try to make it a priority. And it's very informal. I would say I felt a lot of pressure when I joined the program, you know, and there's that big giant packet that says, what are your goals? What do you want to get out of your mentorship? And I actually kind of probably came to the first meeting a little panicked, like, oh my gosh, what are my goals? I have no idea. What should I be asking Molly about? So having it be more informal has been good for me because we've just been able to like work through whatever challenges or anything that I've been worried about or struggling with over the last month or so. I do hope at some point we will meet in person, whether at a Tempo event or maybe we'll venture out. But for now, they're just set up kind of monthly and we do Teams calls.
Excellent.
Julie. Yeah.
This question is for Molly. When you are mentoring, do you always give advice or do you coach your mentee to come up with the solutions on her own?
Well, I mean, I think the goal is for all of us to come up with our solutions on our own, but the purpose of anyone else who's helping you through that conversation is to try to guide you into it. And depending on what the topic is, sometimes, you know, one of the things I love about Bridget as a mentee is, even though she said she wasn't quite sure how to handle this, she's actually quite natural at it because she's open enough to say, you know what, I actually need some advice here, or this is me just kind of sharing. And so she actually sometimes guides me around what she's looking for. So I can usually kind of tell both from her words as well as just where her energy is coming from to say which is really important in the moment. So oftentimes she's already coming with, here's what I think. And she's just sort of looking for some feedback around it. And I just see my role is asking her enough questions and then giving her enough things to think about versus advice. I don't ever want to sort of guide, because in my opinion, the whole point of the mentor relationship is, what am I not thinking of? Not what should I do? So for me, it's more about what are some other things I can think of that maybe she hadn't considered yet to toss into her brain to consider. But at the end of the day, Bridget knows where she wants to go with it, and she takes the things that she finds most valuable, and it's been working for her.
Excellent. So Bridget, adding on to that thought, how does this relationship provide you the wins in your growth career? So you said you didn't necessarily go in with goals, but have you set up goals since that initial conversation?
So Julie, while I didn't go in like with very specific goals, I think there were certain things that I wanted to work on. I think leadership presence was one that I had brought up just kind of as I continue to move up in my career, just having that self-awareness. So that was definitely something that I've talked with Molly about. Team building and just tips and tricks. What I think is super valuable about Molly is she's in the HR realm, which is a little bit different than my world in marketing. So I've definitely floated things by her and asked her opinion or how would be the best way to handle this? What do you think was this the right approach? If you were in the situation, what might have been something that you would have done differently? I think that's been helpful. Also, being in the HR realm, she was able to help me with some tools like the DISC. We did the DISC assessment and then kind of evaluated some of my strengths, some of the things where I was lacking. So I could definitely, things that I could work on, some opportunities for improvement. So I think it's been kind of a win-win, hopefully for Molly too, because I feel like every time I talk to her, she helps me with something or reminds me like the position I'm in and what that entails. So I think that definitely helps me. I think it's been a win-win for sure.
Awesome. So Molly, tell me something you learned from Bridget.
I learned quite a few things from Bridget. And one of the things I loved the most about when we got started was that Bridget has such a way about her that she can establish relationships quickly and comfortably. And I think that was one of the magical pieces for us to be able to connect, is that we're not talking to each other as a mentor and mentee. we're talking to each other as two women who have had different sets of experiences, and how do we kind of share across those lines. And I think that's been really enjoyable. But one of the things in particular I would highlight is Bridget has shown me really direct and interesting ways to be able to take what she's learning and funnel it and channel it into what she's doing with her career. She's been amazing to me in terms of she'll grab feedback from someone walking on the street, from what I can tell. Like, she's just open, and she'll look for the things that are most important to her, and she can make such easy, natural connections to how she thinks that should help guide her actions within her career. And it's been so cool to learn a little bit about how she has been able to channel those things and have a huge impact. I mean, Bridget and I have been talking for I guess about a year and a half now, and she's where she is in her career from when we first connected that very first time, which was, I think, 3 weeks after lockdown, to now has been just phenomenal. So I've learned a ton about watching her be able to activate feedback.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about lockdown. Thinking about the pandemic, and you guys said you started this relationship in the pandemic, so you've never really gotten that face-to-face time, and it's all been virtual. Did you ever feel like you were not mentally or emotionally present to be mentored, Bridget?
So it's interesting, Molly. I guess I forgot, but I forgot that we started talking before I made a transition in jobs, right? But like kind of a few months after COVID started. And Molly, I completely forgot till you said you
had just given notice, like I think the day we had our first meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, I had just left my job and then moved to a different one. So yeah, you've probably seen the biggest transition in my life. Back to your question, Julie. I think because we started meeting kind of at the beginning of COVID, and I was going through kind of a career transition, I think I don't think the pandemic played into like kind of my emotional state, because I was just like trying to, like Molly said, I probably would take advice from someone walking down the street. I'm just really open and want to learn from whoever can give me feedback. I will say there was probably a time maybe earlier this year where I felt kind of like emotionally drained. And I remember we got on, I was contemplating whether or not I should even cancel my mentor meeting, because I just didn't feel like I was in the right frame of mind. And I think Molly and I jumped on. And then after I hung up the phone, I was like, oh, I'm so glad that I jumped on, just because Molly was really reassuring, and that like everyone is going through kind of this odd time. It's okay to feel kind of depleted. Just got to try to recharge. So we talked about, I think, some ways to kind of recharge and refocus on both personal and professional world. So it was super helpful. So I think there's only kind of maybe 1 or 2 times where I did feel kind of emotionally drained, but I think that happens to us regardless of what's going on. So I guess my advice is like, don't be afraid to share and to be kind of vulnerable with your mentor or your mentee, because we're all kind of going through similar things. So sharing kind of gets it off your chest, and then you never know what advice somebody else could be offering you or what they've been through that could add value to or help you get through something that you're going through.
So what voices in your head did you hear when you didn't want to get on the line and you actually took that step? What did you tell yourself?
Sure. I guess I just, even like I probably would have preferred to just take a nap. No offense, Molly, but I feel like every time I get off the phone, it's just so refreshing to hear a different point of view. And I recognize like I'm fortunate enough to get some of Molly's time. So I want to just make sure that I'm being cognizant of that. So I think that's why I jumped on the phone. And then again, she made me feel so much better, just recognizing there's so many different people are in the same place. So don't worry about that. And again, we weren't like checking in on goals or anything. It was just an open conversation, which I think I appreciated. So.
Awesome. Molly, same question for you. Were you ever throughout the pandemic feeling like you were mentally or emotionally not wanting to be present or to be mentoring? Sure.
I mean, I think everybody has had those times during the time, right? But it's, I think for me, it was more about, not necessarily about I'm not here for mentoring right now. Is more just about, I'm not here to talk to people. Like at some point, the being on video and the conversations, etc., can be challenging. But I think similar to Bridget, when I look back and say the couple of times where I might have felt that same kind of depleted energy, similarly, I thought to myself, first off, I remember how impressed and grateful I was when other people who are acting in that capacity would make me a priority. And I never want Bridget to feel like she's not a priority. So, because to me, there might be 100 things that's, that's on her calendar or that's on mine. But those aren't the things that matter. What matters is to know that if you create that kind of relationship, you are there for each other. And that's the point. So to me, it was more about, because it's Bridget, not because it's time to put on my mentor hat. It was, I don't want to let Bridget down. And similar to what Bridget said, when I get off the phone with her, I have the same, Bridget has a lot of infectious energy. And I think we can feed off each other that way. So I can remember that, and remember that the last time, while I might've been back to back in some, stressful situation at work, but taking the time out for that conversation is always rewarding. And I have to remember that each time. And I think for us, it was just a matter of, I don't think either of us want the other one at all to feel like they aren't a priority. So I think that's probably what drives us.
Fantastic. Molly, what surprised you the most about your mentoring experience that you did not expect?
Well, I guess maybe that relates more to the pandemic, because I did not expect it to be as kind of easy as it has been. And I think I attribute a lot of that, again, to Bridget and her ability to create strong relationships quickly. But, we didn't start off super structured. And I think that's important anyway. I think in order to have a fruitful relationship going both ways, you start with the relationship. And I remember during our first call, Bridget sort of said, I'm not sure what we're supposed to do. I know I have these things, and there's, I have a few general ideas. And I said, why don't we just start with what's going on with you? Tell me what's in your life, and I think that gave us a chance to connect differently, knowing that we weren't able to sort of have the social cues of lunch together or an outing, so for us, it really was about that focus on that relationship because of the conditions. But I do think, and Bridget and I, we did try to do a golf outing together. Unfortunately, that one fell through, right. But we will be connecting live in person now that I think we have a lot more opportunity to do so. But I think for me, that was what was I was a little bit nervous going, oh boy, how do you create a relationship, from complete scratch in this scenario? And I think it was 2-3 weeks after lockdown happened. So it was a little intimidating, I think, for both of us, but surprisingly, it was monumentally easier than I would have assumed.
Wonderful. So let's see, Bridget, in addition to the advice that you gave to mentees to be vulnerable, sharing, feeling comfortable to get it off of your chest, what other advice do you have for new mentees that are attending today's session?
Sure. I think that vulnerability and also just embracing the process, like Molly said, I didn't really have an idea. I mean, I've been mentored throughout my career, but most of the time my mentors have either been working with me or alongside me, or I've reported to them. So one of the things that I valued was this partnership was kind of outside of that realm and also outside of my industry. So just being able to be open and then recognizing that your mentor is someone you can confide in. So don't be afraid to share certain things that you maybe wouldn't share with others. Because I'm sure in most cases that individual who's your mentor has been through something similar. Again, we kind of all go through similar stages in our career. So just recognizing that. I'm trying to think of what else. Molly and I text kind of regularly too. So making sure that, the communication between the two of you is always open. I think that's important too. So don't feel like you always have to be in that structured time frame that you have scheduled. Just know that you can form that relationship outside of that structured time. That would be another piece of advice. Again, that's something to have a conversation with your mentor when you start. Just what does communication look like for us? Can I reach out via email? Can I reach out via texting or whatever that looks like? So establishing that probably up front is also a good thing. But my biggest thing is just be open and be, just share what you can and what you'd like to share. And I guess hope for the best, like Molly and I.
Awesome. Molly, same question for you. What advice do you have for the other mentors on the call today?
Yeah, I think it's finding that right balance between structure and casual based on, the relationship you both want to establish as well as the personal styles. I mean, I think for Bridget and I, we both are a little bit more probably relationship oriented than structured to begin with. So for that might have been the right balance for us. But I think it's important to just understand how do each of you feel most comfortable establishing that relationship. So in some cases, I think EWL has certainly given some good materials around how to kick off a relationship, how to utilize that relationship. And I think those are good. And pick out the ones that you think will be most helpful for you in terms of structure that gets you going. And then just calibrate along the way in terms of what you're trying to accomplish and how you want to work together. And as long as you're open, like Bridget said, I think there's been several times where she and I have both kind of had conversations about, okay, well, how do you want to use our time today? Is there anything do you want to follow up on some of the things we talked before? Do you want to just fill me in on what's going on? And even when we have those times where we're just kind of sharing about what's going on, there's always something in there that we can connect back to some of the work that we're doing together and such. So, she'll ask me about what's going on and I'll share with her, vice versa. But we have used enough loose structure that I think we were able to at least have enough of a focus to feel like we're doing good work together, but also to feel like we've made just really good connections and have a good relationship.
Excellent. Thanks, Molly. So we have 10 minutes put aside for Q&A. So we can open it up to the floor. If there are questions from those in the audience, you have the option of either typing in the question into the chat and then I can read it out loud. Just let me know who you would like it directed towards, whether it's Bridget or Molly. And if you would just rather ask the question, just feel free to unmute yourself and ask away.
Julie, one thing I wanted to add, I forgot. I'm so fond of this whole mentorship program through Tempo that we actually internally at the company, I kind of brought this to the table, and our affinity group, our Women of Walbeck group, actually launched a mentorship program kind of mirrored after this one earlier this year. So it's exciting. I encourage, it's going great. Actually, I just had lunch with my mentee today. So the roles were reversed earlier today, Molly, but I take a lot of your advice and you're running through my head quite a bit. So it's going well. We have 20 partnerships right now. So there's 40 women in our organization who are participating in this program. And our goal, I think, is to extend it past just the women, but for now we're starting with our pilot group of women. So just a thought too, if you guys get into the program and are loving it as much as I am, to bring it back to your own organizations.
Awesome. All right, does anybody have a question that they'd like to ask Molly or Bridget? Or if you guys want to think of questions, do you have suggestions for those that have mentored and are on the call today that have other pieces of advice? Same thing with mentees. We're also open to that discussion. No questions.
I have a question, and I think it's kind of for both Bridget and Molly. The reality is we live in small Milwaukee. And so, one of the things I envision talking about with my mentor is challenges that you encounter, and it may be with particular people that you might have in common in networks or that are well known. So can you talk a little bit about maybe the psychological safety that you created in your relationship to have those really candid discussions? Because I can imagine that it's challenging, but at the same time, you want to build that trust with one another, that is someone you can go to talk about those really tough things you encounter.
Yeah, small Milwaukee is funny because I found out about halfway through our relationship so far that actually Bridget and my sister worked together before and have a fond relationship with each other. And I stumbled upon that. I mentioned my mentee Bridget to my sister one day, and she was like, "Bridget, who?" And I thought it was strange that she even asked me who the last name was. And turns out that so yeah, there is definitely kind of those risks that kind of come up with it. Bridget, you can probably answer this better than I can, but I think, well, one for me, given my profession, I'm regularly used to, what that kind of looks like in terms of establishing the right kind of expectations around confidentiality, because it's something you have to do on a pretty regular basis. But I think for Bridget and I both, one is we did have upfront discussions about, we know we're not going to share. The other is, as your relationship continues to flourish, you do get to that point where you would never want to do that to the other person in your relationship to begin with. So that level of shared respect typically can come with the ability to reinforce the fact that we're here for each other. We're not here for anything else that's going to get in the way. We're both bought into each other's success. And I think doing anything that would be compromising or anything except bolstering that would be completely against the whole purpose of the relationship. So that's kind of how I have viewed it. But Bridget, you might have something more tangible to say.
Yeah, I would echo what Molly had to say. Also, I think just tempo in general, like Julie's in my connects circles. What is it? Connects? Whatever. The group. So I think just inherently that is a safe space. So my view, I guess, as I was going into the mentorship space too, that is also kind of that safe space. And again, Molly and I talked about it, and I would agree, like once you get to that strong relationship, you don't want to jeopardize any of that. So I think inherently through kind of all of the relationships I've built through Tempo or Tempo EWL, I've kind of viewed all of them kind of that way, I guess you could say.
All right, we have one question coming in from the chat. Molly, are there times when you feel exhausted to put on a mentor hat? How do you handle that?
Sure, there can be times where, and I think Bridget talked about the same thing for her, where we might look at our calendar and go, man, of everything I've got to do today, I feel like I won't get anything done if I go to this meeting. And then all of a sudden I remember it's not a mentor mentee meeting, it's talking to Bridget. And I think for me, that's where I go, I might not always be on point or super formal about my role as a mentor. And I think part of that might be hopefully what Bridget can appreciate about me, because I think sometimes it's just us chatting. And if you can remove the pressure of the fact that, I must say something useful today to Bridget, and what if I'm not creative of mind enough, and what if everything she says, I don't have anything useful to say. I think if you can remove that stress and just recognize that it's two people having a conversation, learning from each other. And I think the biggest difference for Bridget and I really has to do with the fact that because I've been through some of the things Bridget's already been through, we can anchor both on some of those things, but also I've had those experiences. So even if I just share, she's just going to grab from that, whatever she's looking for, without it having to be, again, me directing her or anything along those lines. That's not what she's looking for, and that's not what she needs. So I think that is all I have to remember to be able to say, oh no, it's my conversation with Bridget. It's not my mentor hour. So.
Thank you. All right, Anne is raising her hand. Anne, you want to ask your question?
Yes. Well, you just asked if any of the mentors or mentees had other advice. So I thought I would throw out that one thing that's been very fun in all three of my mentor relationships is we've planned a walk or a hike. And my current mentee and I go for walks regularly because we live near one another. But even if you don't, it's just a great way to get some fresh air, multitask positively and socially, and you can talk through those challenges. So thought I'd pass that along as an idea.
Fantastic. And I can give some advice too for mentees. Don't worry if your mentor does not have all the answers. That's not the expectation. In many cases, Suzanne Maldonado is my mentor. She has pointed me in the right direction to connect with somebody else in Tempo or somebody else in her network that can help me and guide me and provide me more insight. So don't think of this as this is just one-to-one. It's one-to-one to many. All right, anything else? Any other questions, thoughts, ideas, suggestions? All right, we'll go back. Okay, so we're just going to go through fairly quickly the overview of the program's expectations. You have the one-to-one mentoring program welcome packet. And as Bridget said, it can seem a little bit daunting because there's quite a bit inside. Everything inside is meet your match, and it's called out from both sides. A welcome letter, the mentoring guide, a mentor's role, the mentee's role, so there is no confusion as to what those expectations are, and additional resources, because we've learned every time we do this that the feedback is, well, where can I start? How can I start these conversations? What resources are available to me? So we have gathered that up for you as well. And in addition, we suggest meeting at minimum every other month, but that is not hard and fast rules here. Some matches meet more, some matches meet less. I usually meet with mine every 4 to 6 weeks, but we've been really busy over the summer. So it's been a couple months and I have to get it back on calendar. We've given you a sample agenda for your first meeting. If you need that as that icebreaker and something to anchor onto, it's a great source of inspiration. And then the guidelines, just like Bridget and Molly talked about, the entire program is loosely structured, so you can make it what you want. You can make it as formal or as informal as you'd like, just knowing that it is a safe space for both the mentor and the mentee. So if there's anything that anybody needs help with, either reaching their mentor or mentee, or you're kind of stuck on where to start, feel free to reach out to either anybody on the committee. If you could reach out to Marit, we can step in and help and provide that insight. Okay, our top 5 tips. The best practices, and like I said, this is not hard and fast. Decide how often you guys want to meet and put the calendar invites out there ASAP. Even in our circle, we have the same problem. If you don't make time for this, it's not going to happen. And your best bet to ensure that it happens is making sure that your calendar has a regular cadence to it, and those meeting days are blocked off ahead of time so that you can schedule other meetings around that particular meeting. It's really hard to put it on there when you're trying to do it in real time, and then schedules get busy and then they get complicated. And the last thing you want is to find yourself in that pattern of canceling those meetings and then realizing, oh my gosh, it's been 3-4 months and we haven't even connected yet. So for the mentees, our next tip, please be as specific as you can about what you'd like to achieve from the relationship and thinking about your goals. They don't have to be huge aspirational goals. It could be something as small as with my mentor, I was starting to go through a bit of depression. I'm like, how do I get myself out of bed every morning? What can motivate me? What can I do? And she was great at just telling me to take it one day at a time, 1 hour at a time. So they don't have to be giant goals. They can be as aspirational as you'd like them to be. But think about the background that your mentor has and what they can help you with. And like I said before, your mentor does not have to have all the answers, but they can provide you direction, people to talk to, and different ways of thinking about the problem that might get you thinking about things differently. 3, take the time to get to know each other. It doesn't have to be all business. I consider my mentor one of my great friends, and we have that kind of relationship. I don't really even think of her as my mentor as much as somebody I enjoy having coffee with and just talking about what's going on in each other's lives. To that, don't get hung up on the mentor-mentee titles. Just as easily as a mentor can mentor a mentee can mentor up to a mentor. My mentor had never mentored anybody before, and I had been mentored by many people. So I was teaching her as much as she was helping me get through many of the challenges that I encountered over the last 3 years. And then finally, keep each other accountable to the things that you said you're going to do. The best way to do that is, either write it down in your notes on your phone, agree to put it on maybe your next agenda, but don't let it go by. Try and make sure that you guys are staying connected to the goals that you are setting out with each other and progressing them. And if they're not progressing, talk about what's in the way and figure out how to make it move forward. And if you need outside help, like I said, the mentoring committee as well as Marit are definitely sources of resources for you to ask questions, and we can give you additional tips if you need them.
Thanks, Julie.
All right.
So now we are going to do a quick breakout. So if you are here with your mentor or mentee, we have put you together. If your mentor or mentee are not here, you will be surprised and get to meet 2 to 3 new people. So you can really talk about anything you want in these breakout rooms, but here's some ideas for you. What resonated with you about Bridget and Molly's mentoring story? Have you participated in mentoring programs in the past? talking about your next meeting and your meeting schedule and what type of communication works best for each of you. So feel free to use these. Icebreakers don't, but this time is yours to get to know each other better. So we'll see you back here in 10 minutes. As we're waiting, thank you. As we're waiting, we've got a little homework for you to type your key takeaway from the event in the chat and or a fun future meeting spot, because we know that was a request during Mentee. And we'll save these ideas and send them around to everyone. All right, I think there's still a few people chatting in the breakout rooms. Yes, look at pretty fall colors. That's a good one. I will put a plug in for a future meeting spot for the Tempo office. We move in just a couple of weeks here. There will be different meeting spaces that you can definitely use if you would like to stop on in. But also downstairs from our new office at the Avenue will be the 3rd Street Market Food Hall. So that is probably a more fun place to meet than the Tempo office. There will be, I think, like 20 something vendors eventually. But yeah, please put your takeaways in the chat. We'll save this. And lastly, just want to thank our one-to-one mentoring committee for their support. You will be hearing from someone on our committee in the next couple of weeks here. We like to check in semi-regularly just to make sure everything's going well, see if you have any questions, troubleshoot anything, and make sure that we can make our program better. So thanks for tuning in. We promised you'd get out in an hour, and it's 4:57. So go enjoy the rest of your Monday, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.